Do you have some weird habits? You know, weird things that you just keep doing over and over, weird things that you just sort of can't stop doing. I have one that Carrie likes to make fun of me for, and I don't know when I started doing this, and I'm not even really aware of the fact that I do it, but Carrie is very sure that I do. Apparently, whenever I drink from a water bottle or any kind of bottle, I put my tongue in the top of it to plug it before, like when I put it up. It's weird. I don't know why I do it. Maybe one time I went like this and wasn't ready yet and poured water all over myself. So now I'm making sure that I plug the hole until everything's prepared. I don't know, but it's kind of a weird habit. And then over the years, because I do this, because I preach week after week, I develop these weird habits when I'm preaching. For a long time, I was in this habit of jingling my keys and the change in my pockets while I was on stage preaching. That was a terrible one. And to break that, I ended up having to take everything out of my pockets, and I would leave it off stage before I would start preaching. And then for a while, I started rubbing my head a lot. I still kind of do sometimes when I'm thinking. Once I kind of got bald, I started rubbing my head when I was thinking about stuff. And that's a weird habit. And then sometimes, whenever I preach about something that I don't really want to talk about, something that's awkward or hard for me, like whenever I preach about money, I rub my ear like this. And it's funny because whenever I preach about money, by the time the sermon is done, my ear is glowing red because I've just been rubbing my ear so much during the message. And so this week I was thinking about habits. And this passage in the book of Hebrews came to mind. Because the writer talks about habits there. And in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25, this is what the writer says. He says, "Don't stop meeting together with other believers, which some have gotten in the habit of doing. Instead, encourage each other, especially as you see the day drawing near." It's an interesting way to put a habit, right? Because the habit that the writer is talking about here is not a habit of something that they're doing, but it's actually a habit of something that they're not doing, right? The not doing is the habit. People had gotten into the habit of not getting together, of not gathering together to worship together, to share communion together. But this isn't how things started out for the early church. The early church started out very, very differently. In fact, the early church seemed to find strength and connection together after Jesus' crucifixion, after his resurrection, and after Jesus returns to the Father. There's this idea that they would meet regularly to get together. So for example, in Acts chapter 2, verse 42 to 43, it says this: "The believers," so these early followers of Jesus, "devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers, and a sense of awe came over everyone." It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? It sounds like this great example of community. And Luke goes further and he tells us how this sense of community, connection, how it developed. And in Acts 2, when you get to verse 46 and 47, Luke says this. He says, "Every day they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. And the Lord added daily to the community those who were being saved." It sounds lovely, doesn't it? It sounds good. It sounds like true connected community, true loving and caring community. And there's a real honeymoon sense to these passages, isn't there? Right? You get this feeling of common life. You get this feeling of care, compassion, love for each other. You get this sense that they understood the power and the importance of community. And you get the sense that they understood how much they needed each other. And so it's strange that you've got these early passages talking about how connected they were, how together they were, how much of a sense of community there was. But by the time we get to this letter written that we call the book of Hebrews, by the time we get to that, the writer of Hebrews is writing and he tells them that they need to not stop meeting together. Right? Because it sounds like already that's what they've started doing. It sounds like that sense of community has gotten broken. It sounds like that sense of care, compassion, togetherness just isn't quite there anymore. And the writer of Hebrews is concerned about it. So the writer of Hebrews tells them not to stop meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing. But here's the thing, it's not surprising that things have changed. You know, it's easy for us to forget when we're reading through the Bible, it's easy for us to forget that there's a lot of time that's elapsed. By the time the writer of Hebrews is writing this letter, things are not easy for the church. The writer is trying to encourage a church that is being persecuted, and persecuted in some very serious ways. We already get the sense from this letter that they're being attacked in public. While they walk down the street, they're being attacked. People are calling them names. People are yelling at them. You know, this kind of things. We also find out that their belongings are being stolen from them, are being confiscated. And so they're being called heretics, they're being called blasphemers, they're being accused of treason, and then everything they own is being taken from them. And then we find out that some of them have been martyred for their faith. They've actually been executed because of what they believe. It is hard to maintain community, to maintain connectedness and togetherness when life starts to get really hard. That makes it very, very, very difficult. Last week, our Prime Minister had some tough words for all of us. And he shared an address, and I want to show a clip from that right now. So let's watch that clip.
We are in an unprecedented global pandemic that really sucks. It's tough going through this second wave. It's frustrating having shut down all of us, our lives through the spring, and now be forced to make more difficult choices and knowing that it's going to be a tough winter ahead as well.
I thought this was hilarious. I absolutely love that the Prime Minister of our country says, it really sucks. I loved it. I thought it was great, but it ended up being a thing. It ended up turning into this whole thing. I saw articles, people saying, well, you know, it sucks isn't a very prime minister-y thing to say. You know what I mean? Like, prime ministers aren't supposed to say stuff like that, I guess. But I loved it because I thought, you know what? This guy is being honest, isn't he? I mean, this guy's being honest. It sucks. It really does suck. It isn't going away anytime soon, right? This way of life that we are currently in the middle of, it's not going away, and we want it to go away so badly. We all want things to return to normal, don't we? We want things to be the way they were. We want life to be like it was in the before times, you know, when we were able to get together, when we were able to enjoy each other's company. We want that. We want to be able to go to our friends' houses for dinner, to have supper together with our friends, and to talk and to laugh. You know, we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to go to church together on Sundays in person and to sing and to worship together. We want that so badly. Last week was Halloween, and it was the first time in, I don't know, maybe 10 years that we didn't have our annual Halloween party because we can't all get together. I really missed being able to have all of you over. I missed being able to have you here in our home, and we could dress up and act like children and laugh together and enjoy each other's company. I missed that. I miss you. And you know what? I liked what the Prime Minister had to say. You know why? Because this does suck. And this sucks. I don't enjoy doing this. I don't enjoy preaching to a camera. I have decided that I do not want to be a professional YouTuber. I can't believe that there are people who like doing this, who want to do this, and who do this on a regular basis and make videos. I can't believe that there are people who like this. I find it really hard to do this week after week after week. It's tough. Preaching to a camera instead of actual live people is really hard. I am doing my best to stare at the camera lens and try to pretend that it's actually a person. Try to pretend that I actually can see all of you and I can interact with you and connect with you. This, for example, this right here, this is what I'm looking at whenever I record these videos. This is what I see. It doesn't feel like it's real. And then on top of it, My goodness, for a person like me who's got a pretty hefty dose of attention deficit disorder, there's so much going on all the time with the lights and the camera. And right now, right behind the camera, there's a couple squirrels who are fighting on our deck. And then on top of it, we have to try to figure out when we can do this in the house because, I started filming this today and then Keelan walked into the basement and for some reason he was whistling. So both of the dogs lost their mind and started barking and trying to get downstairs. So we had to stop everything and start all over again. One week even, Carrie was filming, I was filming downstairs in the library, and there's a window right here in a lot of those videos from back then, and Carrie was working in the garden while I was trying to focus on the camera, and I could see her moving outside of the camera, outside of the view. It's so hard. And I miss being able to see you, and to know if what I'm saying is making sense to you, to know if it's connecting, to know if I need to adjust what I'm doing. People have often said that when I preach, it feels like I'm having a conversation with them. And in a way I am, even though I'm standing on stage usually and I'm preaching to a group of people, I generally preach as if I am having a conversation, and I can see people's body language and I can see how they're reacting to what I'm saying, and I can adjust, and in a sense that is a conversation because I'm saying something that I'm adjusting based on how they're responding to what I'm saying, and I can't do any of that with this. And live streaming on Sundays isn't much better. It's hard to lead worship to a camera. And then on Sundays, we have 3 cameras, and so it's even harder when I'm not entirely sure which one of the cameras is the one that they're currently sending to the internet. And so sometimes we end up with this kind of thing where I'm talking like this to the wrong camera. It's tough. It's hard. And it's hard not to be able to hear you singing along with us, to hear you worshiping with us, to hear you participating and being a part of what's going on. And it's hard not to hear your loud and raucous laughter at the jokes that I tell on Sunday mornings, because I am sure, since our jokes are so amazing, that you are at home somewhere just laughing your heads off. People are crying, there are tears coming because of how amazing the jokes are. I miss being able to share and worship together with all of you. I do. And I miss being able to sit down at church and grab a coffee and connect with you and talk and listen to what's been going on in your life and to connect with where everybody's at. I miss these things, and I miss having you here in my home for meals. I miss all these things. To quote the Prime Minister, not being able to get together really, really sucks. He was right. And so here's the thing, I was thinking about the words that the author of Hebrews chose to use. The word that is translated don't stop getting together. That word that's translated don't stop is the Greek word enkatalipo. And this word enkatalipo, it actually kind of translates more as to not abandon or to not give up. Don't you love that? The writer of Hebrews, that's what the writer of Hebrews is saying. He's saying, don't give up yet. Don't give up getting together. It's not this like a command. It's like he's imploring them, don't give up yet. I know it's hard, but don't give up yet. Maybe you feel like giving up, but don't give up yet. The church in Hebrews wasn't giving up meeting together because they had something more exciting to do. The church in Hebrews wasn't giving up meeting together because they wanted to sleep in on Sunday. That's not what was going on. The church was giving up meeting together because it was getting harder and harder physically to get together. As persecution grows, the church was getting more and more scared to be together in person. And they didn't want to get caught. They didn't want to become martyrs themselves. They were having to come up with new ways to connect, new ways to worship, new ways to meet with each other. And they were doing that because they still believed that it was important, but it was getting hard, and it was getting to be something that was too much. And in their case, it was something that was scary. And so the writer of Hebrews says, don't give up yet. Don't give up yet. This is why it is so important for us as a faith community to keep doing everything we can to stay connected with each other. This is why it's so important. As church leadership, we are trying to do as many things as we can to try to help us be connected, right? Things like this. One of the reasons we do this is because we think that it matters. We think that it's important. This is why we keep doing it, even though it's tough. I think it matters to keep working on messages, to keep working on these kinds of things, to help us all figure out what it means to try to get through this together. I think it matters to try to figure out, what does it look like to follow Jesus in the middle of a pandemic? What does that look like? And so we're trying to do this, and we're trying to come up with ways to do that help us all stay connected. This is why we work so hard at these. This is why we're trying to make them as good as we can. This is why we've spent some money on better equipment. This is why we spent some money on lighting. It's why we're doing the absolute best job that we can with these. And it's why we record them. It's why we record them ahead of time, by the way. One of the reasons that I've sort of kept doing it the way we're doing it, we have a little bit of a devotional during the live stream, and then we have these afterwards, is that live streaming can be tricky. We don't have a whole lot of control over what Facebook does when all those signals go up on the internet. Sometimes the audio and the video, they get out of sync. And that can even happen with these recorded messages, usually during the watch party. And because of that, we're trying to do the best that we can to at least make it easy to watch, easy to listen to, etc. Trying to put them in as many places as possible. But it is not the same thing as in person, is it? It's not the same thing. And we get that. We're also working hard on our live stream worship service on Sunday mornings. That's one of the reasons why we've been trying to do the best job we can do with that as well. We want to make it as enjoyable as possible. We're trying to involve as many people as we can as possible. And again, I'm going to ask, I would love for some of you to send in, videos of jokes that you might have that you want to share with us. We're looking for more people to participate in sharing devotionals with us. If you're struggling with the technical side of things, you're not sure if you know how to put a video together, we can help with that. But we would like more people involved. But we're still trying to do the best job that we can. We're trying to involve as many people because we want to do it wisely. We want to do it safely. It's also one of the reasons why, by the way, that we've decided to stay with Facebook. It's one of the reasons that we're still live streaming on Facebook. YouTube actually has sort of a higher quality of live streaming. You can stream higher quality video, and they seem to do a better job of encoding. But we've decided to stay on Facebook because one of the things that we know is so important is that ability to be able to connect with each other. Often on Sunday mornings, you'll see in the comments section conversations going on, people talking and connecting. Hey, how are you doing? And I really love that we're able to do that. And that same option's not as easily available on YouTube. So we've decided to stay on Facebook and do that. And I know some of you don't like Facebook. I don't like Facebook either. I had to put Facebook back on my phone again when the pandemic hit because I had taken it off because I had a hard time with it. But we really think that doing our best to create opportunities for connection really matter. And if you don't have a Facebook account, you can still watch the live stream. If you go to facebook.com/VoxAlliance/live, even if you don't have an account, you can still watch the live stream on a Sunday morning. But here's the thing. We know it's not great. We understand it is not the same thing as being able to come into the loft, grab a cup of coffee and sit down in your favorite spot and participate in the service in real life. We understand that it's not nearly as good. I get that. I totally get that. But it's the best that we can do right now. It's what we have available to us right now. It's interesting. I've noticed during this pandemic, I've noticed sometimes people struggling with how much this sucks, and I'll hear them saying, I went and I did this, but it's not like it used to be. At O'Hara's, they had a golf tournament, and after the golf tournament, there were a few people who were complaining that this year's golf tournament wasn't as good as last year's golf tournament. And I was a bit surprised, and I said, well, yeah, of course it wasn't as good as last year's golf tournament. There wasn't a global pandemic going on during last year's golf tournament. And isn't it amazing that you could have a golf tournament this summer? You see, that's the thing. It wasn't a question of comparing, the pandemic golf tournament to the non-pandemic golf tournament. That's not what the options were. The options were a pandemic golf tournament or no golf tournament. And the same is kind of true for what we're doing right now. It's not about comparing, sort of live streamed worship to church the way it used to be in the before times. It's about live streamed worship or nothing. Because we can't safely and responsibly do that. I mean, that's the other reality. The other option, live stream isn't great, but the other option is that we give up meeting together and we do nothing. And we're not okay with that either. I am not okay with giving up yet. So what can you do? What can you do? Here's the thing. We are going to keep trying to provide as many ways for us to connect. We're going to keep trying to provide ways for us to not stop getting together with other believers, like the writer of Hebrews says. We're going to keep trying to do that. But that's not all that needs to happen for all of us to stay connected. We've got to continue to be intentional about it. And we're going to have to put a lot of more effort and energy into it. We're all going to have to continue to be intentional. It's not just about watching the live stream or the watch parties of the recorded message. It's not just about that. Although I really want to encourage you to do that, right? I want to encourage you to do that. That's important. But it's got to go beyond that. There's this funny verse in the book of Hebrews near the beginning of it. It's in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 13. And in some of the more literal translations, it says it this way. Sometimes it gets changed so that it makes a little more sense because it's a little bit funny. But in the sort of like word for word translations, this is what Hebrews chapter 3 verse 13 says. The writer says, "But encourage one another day after day, as long as it is still called today." I think that's hilarious. I love that. As long as it is still called today, encourage each other. You wake up and you're like, is it today? Yes, it's today. Oh, good. Then encourage each other. Is it tomorrow yet? No, it's not tomorrow. It's today. Oh, I should be encouraging somebody, right? That's a great way to think about it. So is it today? Wherever you are watching this, whenever you're watching this, is it today? Because if it's today, then you have to ask yourself, who can I encourage today? Who can I lift up today? Who can I inspire today? Because as long as it's today, you should be encouraging somebody. So what can you do to help others stay connected? What can you do to help others stay connected? If you yourself are feeling disconnected, then maybe help out on Sunday with the live stream. We've asked for help a few times. We now things are a lot more complicated. We've got multiple cameras. We've got to do some funky streaming stuff. The PowerPoint has to go to different places all at the same time. We've got setup to do. There's lots of that kind of stuff to do. So maybe help out on Sunday morning. Because it's actually a way that you can connect in person with other people from Vox. Look, we're doing the best we can. We're abiding by protocols. Everybody's wearing masks and sanitizing when they come in the building and trying to stay distanced if we can help it. It's one of the reasons why the stage looks the way it does. Instead of being all nice and close and intimate, we're spread out a little bit to do our best to protect everybody, right? But it still is a chance to get together, to meet in person, to talk a little bit. And so if you're feeling disconnected, if you're struggling a little bit, then send me a text and we'll get you there once or twice a month to try to help on Sunday mornings. It's an opportunity for you to connect with some other people and be a part of what's going on. And look, if you're afraid of the technical side of things, if you're like, oh my goodness, I'm terrible with cameras, or I don't know anything about computers, if you're afraid of all that, Rob Pinches, who has volunteered to help out and has been helping out the last couple Sundays, Rob told me to tell you that if he can do it, anybody can do it. And so please, if you're feeling disconnected, then volunteer to help on Sunday mornings. It's a great way to do it. Something else you can do is make a point of participating in the live worship on Sunday morning. Engage. Make a point of being there when it's actually going on. It's okay to watch it later, but to actually be there at 10:30 on Sunday mornings when we start worshiping together, there's something kind of powerful about the fact that we're actually doing it together. That in that moment, even though we're spread out all over the city and truth be told, all over the province and the country, we're doing it at the same time together. Make a point of engaging in the conversation that's going on in the comments. Make a point of sharing what's going on in your own life in the comments. I love seeing sometimes people sharing prayer requests in the comments. I love seeing people saying hello to each other in the comments. There's something powerful. Is it as good as it is before COVID? No. But right now, it's the best thing we have. One of the other things I want to encourage you to do is make a point of maybe participating in the watch parties. Facebook has changed some things again, so it looks like last Sunday they were able to do it again. And so what happens is usually Heather on Sundays hosts a watch party to watch the recorded message. And what's been kind of cool is it's in the comments with that as well. There ends up having a conversation, and people are actually able to interact with each other and with what I'm talking about on a Sunday morning. It's such a great opportunity to do that. And so I want to encourage you to do that as well, engage in the discussion. These are things you can do to still keep connected. What else can you do? Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. If you're feeling disconnected, if you're feeling like nobody's reaching out to you, then reach out. I want to encourage you to pick up the phone, text somebody from the Vox family who you haven't talked to in a while. Check in, say, how are you doing? Encourage you, try texting somebody every day and saying, hey, how are you doing? It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but just to let people know that you're out there. Such a great way to maintain connection, to reach out yourself. Or try an old school voice call. You know, remember when we used to have the phone and we would put it to our ear and we would actually talk and you would hear the person on the other end talking? Maybe give that a try. It's amazing how good it is to hear somebody's voice on the other end of the phone call. Again, I want to encourage you guys to make use of any kind of video chatting that you can do. Look, I know for a lot of us who are working from home, I know some of us are so sick of Zoom calls, and it's so weird, and it's not great, and it's weird to watch yourself, isn't it? One of the hardest parts about making these videos is I have to edit these. I have to put it into a computer, and then I have to sit there and listen to myself and watch myself week after week after week. And you know what's really tough is this guy in these videos, he's old and he looks old. And I keep thinking, oh my goodness, who is that old man? And then I realize, oh no, it's me, you know? So I get it. I get how that Zoom call can feel. But I also understand how powerful it is to be able to see somebody and connect that way. There's a group of us who play D&D once every couple weeks. And most of the people in the group I'm playing with are from Vox, and it's nice to see those people. It's weird, it's awkward, it's not as good as it was when we could be around a table together laughing and joking, but my goodness, I look forward to seeing those people so much. I play with Patrick Gregg, and I get it, it's not the same. I miss Patrick's hugs. I miss getting a hug from Patrick on Sunday mornings, but at least this way I get to see his smiling face, and it makes me happy. So maybe reach out, connect with a few people. Get outside. This is going to be tough, people. We are going into a Canadian winter with COVID, and that's going to make things harder. That's going to make it harder to meet in somebody's backyard and sit and chat. It's going to make it harder to do driveway beers. It's going to make it harder to go for a walk. But it's really important. Just like the writer of Hebrews said, right? Don't give up meeting together. So get yourself some warm winter clothes and make a point of scheduling times with different people to connect, to go for a walk, and just to sit and have a chat. Sit maybe out in the driveway and have coffee, do something, but try to connect with each other. It's going to be important. Dress for the weather and you'll be just fine. And the other thing I want to encourage us is, look, take the initiative. Take the initiative. Like, COVID has changed a lot of things for a lot of us. I work part-time at a new job. One of the things that has happened around Vox over the last few years is I have started taking, I think it was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I started taking a part-time salary instead of a full-time salary. Now, for most of the time, I was working mostly part-time for Vox because, but I was just getting paid for half of it. And then I started working with Roy, and you know, that was able to sort of supplement my income a little bit, and it didn't take too many hours out of my week. And I was able to do that. Unfortunately, COVID kind of messed with that, and I needed to find a new job. And so I've been working for Jeff's Junk this summer, driving truck part-time. And it's been a busy summer, which has meant that I work quite a few more hours than I'm used to, and it's made it really hard for me to try to connect. It's made it really hard for me to be able to get these messages done, because now I've also got to record them and get things ready for the service on the weekend, and by the time I'm done doing all of that, I often don't have a whole lot of time left to try to reach out and connect with people around the church. But Vox isn't just me. Vox is all of us. We as a faith community are Vox. And I'm not the only one that things have changed for when it comes to COVID. Some of us, I know some of you are frustrated because you've lost your jobs because of COVID, and you're sitting around wishing that you could go to work, and that can be really hard. I remember in April and May, I was really struggling because I was just sitting around the house starting to go a little bit stir crazy, and I know how hard that can be. And then some of you are like me. COVID has done the other thing to your work, and suddenly you've got too much work and you don't know what to do with it all, and you're exhausted and you're tired. Not to mention the fact that we're all exhausted and tired from all the stress that's sitting on our shoulders because of this whole thing. To stay connected, we are all going to have to start taking initiative to reach out rather than wait for others to connect with us. So ask yourself questions like, who can you reach out to? Who haven't you talked to in a while? Who do you find yourself going, I haven't seen them in a bit. I wonder how they're doing. Who can you check in on? Who can you schedule time to go for a walk? Who can you schedule time to connect with? Maybe you meet by Zoom and you have tea over Zoom with each other. Or maybe you go for a walk in person, like I said, but who haven't you checked on for a while together? Because here's the thing. It's still today. As far as I know, it's still today. And we are all in this together. So since it's still today, we need to be encouraging each other not to give up today. We need to be taking the initiative to reach out and connect with others today, because it's still today. And we can do this. In our house, we have a sign downstairs. It hangs downstairs where we put our coats. And above it, it says, we can do hard things. Because that's an important truth that we need to remind ourselves of. We can do hard things. Sometimes the things in life that are most important are hard things. And so for us, it's such a nice reminder that when you go grab your coat before you leave for the day, you're reminded that we can do hard things. Because the scriptures tell us that we can do all things through Him who gives us strength. We aren't alone in this. We can do hard things. He'll give us the strength to do it. This part of the story is tough. This part of the story sucks. And it is not fun. And it is not how we wish things were. But it is also not the end of the story yet. We can do hard things. So don't give up. And be encouraged, and remember that Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world. God bless. Thank you so much for listening today. And I'm so encouraged that you are a part of this faith community. And I want to again say, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. It's still today. Don't give up. God bless. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.